This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
It's 6:06 right now. Opinions expressed on this program are those of the program host and guests on the phone, not necessarily WPSL or Port St. Lucie broadcasters. Any reproduction or reuse of this program without the written consent of WPSL is strictly prohibited. You're just in time for the African American scene. Brought to you by Howard Insurance and hosted by Rudy Howard.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Glad to be back with you here this Wednesday night. I'll tell you, I was in Atlanta last week.
Did you get to play golf?
Yes, I did.
I remembered that.
There was about 100 guys. So we had a huge amount of golfers there. And but you know what was funny? I think it was like 85 or 86 degrees, and everybody was talking about how hot it was. And I was going, they said, "Aren't you hot?" And I go, "I'm sorry, this ain't really that hot to me." Being from here, you know, I mean, it was warm, but it wasn't like it could get here, you know, so.
Oh, man.
But anyway, I had a good time. I played awful. And I don't care. I'm getting to the point now where I don't care if I played awful.
It's not whether you can play great or not. It's that you got to get on a beautiful golf course and do it.
Yes.
That's what counts.
And be with a whole bunch of guys that I really like and had a good time. Right. And, you know, we have guys from all over the country. We have guys from California and Chicago and Philadelphia and Cleveland and D.C. and New York. So, you know, it's my organization. We have guys from all over the country. And I've known some of these guys now for like 20 years, so it's always good to see them, you know, and it's a lot of fun. And my days of being a fairly decent golfer, I think, are behind me, but that's okay, too. Okay, there's plenty of stuff going on, for sure. And let me, and if this is the first time you've ever listened to me, what I do is I lay out a list of topics. I will come back, and in most cases, I will drop the research on you that I did for those topics. And I encourage you to call in and speak on any of the topics that I list. Topic number one, and this will get some of you going. There's a Pew Research poll that says the public lists the best president. They list President Obama as the best president in their lifetime, followed by Clinton and Reagan. Oh, I know that'll get some of you going.
Reagan was in that?
Yeah.
Wow.
Those were the top three: Obama, Clinton, and Reagan. Top three presidents. And poor Trump was pulling up the rear, except only when they measure Republicans only, he did pretty well. But across the board, he was really down there, like 14%, 19%, but I got the stats. Number two, it was discovered within the last week the real reason for adding the citizenship question to the census. A former big-time Republican supporter, his daughter got a hold of his computer, and on his hard drive was the explanation for why Donald Trump and his people wanted to add the citizenship question. You'll be interested to hear their reasoning. And this is not speculative. It's not fake news. This is not Rudy opinion. This is what was determined from actual facts.
Just for like the upcoming census? Because they asked me that back in 2000.
Well, no, they want to put a specific question about your citizenship.
Ah,
That's the issue. Topic number 3. And this is a really interesting one, and I'm not even totally sure how I feel about this. The officer from Parkland was picked up the other day and charged with 11 counts for his reaction to the shooting at Parkland.
You know, I don't think this is good for people who are thinking about becoming police officers. Besides, you know, you hear the outcry from the parents. They're glad that they did something about it. But it doesn't, I'm sorry, it doesn't bring back those that were killed. It doesn't do that. And I think he was too old for that particular position.
Well, he was like 55 or 56.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing that you have to put into the equation. And this is where I'm struggling myself. Had he acted and potentially put himself in danger, which is part of his responsibility as a police officer, would that number be 10 or 12 instead of 17? That's the question that you have to kind of ask yourself. If he acted, would there be some children still alive and some people that maybe were not injured? I don't know the answer to that. I know I looked at a brief video and part of the article that I read in preparation for tonight said that he was like almost an hour without moving. So I don't know, but I'll be interested to hear what everybody has to say. You ask yourself. I know I asked myself the question: what would I have done if I was in that position? Next topic. Jobs report. 27,000 jobs. That's the lowest since 2010.
Most people that I know only need one.
That's true. Yes, so that's the lowest jobs count since 2010. We just racked up the largest deficit in a quarter, I believe, in the history. Don't hold me to this, but I believe it was in the history of our country since we've been keeping records. Something in the neighborhood of $35 billion deficit in the last quarter. So, and you know what's funny, and Cliff, you'll remember it. People were calling up here like Steve and chewing me out because Obama didn't care about the deficit. He was just running us into debt, and it didn't matter. You know, I remember Steve calling me up and just really giving me holy hell about that. Now, I wonder what you have to say now that there's a Republican in the White House who's just running the deficit into the atmosphere, to the stratosphere. And finally, this is the one that kind of gets my craw. Trump has proposed selling nuclear equipment to the Saudis after they killed our reporter Khashoggi, the Washington Post reporter Khashoggi.
Yeah.
You remember they killed him.
Yeah, well, obviously somebody has forgotten.
Now let me tell you why this particular thing really pisses me off. I took heat from a couple of callers who called up complaining about President Obama giving Iran back the money that we owed them that we had since the early 70s, and they felt that was wrong.
Even though it was their money to begin with that we had confiscated.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, but now they always that lie keeps getting told.
Oh, yeah.
That President Obama gave our money away, and that's not what happened. But I'm glad, and so I have fought that fight as often as I could fight it. That was not our money. He gave them back their money and interest from like 1973.
But there's always going to be historical revisionists that are going to always want something to do.
Yes. So my question is, does that ruffle your feathers? And here's the more important thing. I want you to put your thinking cap on. If we give nuclear type equipment to Saudi, which is in close proximity to Iran, do you think just maybe, just possibly, Iran might get a little nervous and want to go back and start building their nukes now? Just a thought, your thought. Okay, those are my subjects. And you're welcome to call in 340-1590. Love to hear what you have to say about any of those subjects that I laid out. Now, let's start with the first one. I read this and I said, the devil in me is going to make me present this Wednesday night because I know I'm going to make some people mad. 'Cause I can remember Brian and I getting into it because he told me that President Obama was the worst president ever. Well, and I don't know how he came up with that, but anyway.
Well, people they would say things like that, and if somebody simply doesn't like somebody, then it's easy to grasp a hold of it and and go along with it because it's what you want to hear.
Yeah.
It's what somebody wants to hear.
Now here's the first poll question. It says, which president has done the best job during your lifetime? Trump, 19%. Obama, 44%. Although Trump does outperform George W. Bush. George W. Bush, 14%. Clinton, 33%. And Reagan, 32%. Then it's followed by Carter and Ford, and they're all like 4, 3, 1, 2 in that area. Except
what
for
about
Kennedy.
Dwight D. Eisenhower?
Eisenhower is 2%.
Wow.
Kennedy is 12%. Okay. Now,
do you have all the presidents?
Yeah, it breaks it down a little further.
Okay.
Now, this question is to the millennials. The millennials were asked which was the best president in your lifetime. The millennials, the Gen Xers, the boomers, and the silent. The silent were ages 73 and over. In the millennials, which is 22 to 37, 62% said President Obama, which actually isn't shocking because if you think about it, that was...
Millennials are still young.
Yes, and that was probably... They had 8 years of President Obama, so... And then comparing President Obama to our current president might make President Obama look just a bit better anyway. But anyway, so President Obama by the millennials was 62%. Clinton, 47%. Trump, 19%. Even George W. Bush was 20%. And Reagan is 13%. This is with millennials. Now you go to the Gen Xers. And the Gen Xers are 38 to 53. Trump, 15%. President Obama, 41%. George W. Bush, 12. Clinton, 39%. George H.W. Bush, 12%. And Reagan, 45%. So that was with the Gen Xers. Okay. So we've done 22 to 37 and 38 to 53. Now we're going to go to the boomers, my generation.
Here we go.
This is our
this is us.
This is our generation.
Yeah.
Trump, 21%. Actually, he scored higher among the boomers than any other class of people at 21%. President Obama, 32%. George W. Bush, 8%. Clinton, 25%. George H.W. Bush, 10%. Reagan, 42%. And Kennedy, 24%. 42% for Reagan, 24% for Kennedy. Kennedy, among the boomers, still ranks pretty high. And then we get into the silent, they call them, which is 73 to 90. And this kind of surprised me.
They're not really silent. They're just tired.
Yes, exactly. President Trump, 19%. I just thought that would be much higher. President Obama, 24%. That didn't shock me that he would be lower in that age group.
Well, the demographics aren't exactly like they were 50 years ago.
Yeah. George W. Bush, 5%. Clinton, 15%. H.W. Bush, 9%. And here comes Reagan, 38%. Reagan is 38%. So Reagan performed very strongly in the silent group. So that's why they were saying, really, when you boil down to it, it's Obama, Clinton, and Reagan with the strong showing. Also in the silent group, Kennedy scored 25% in there. Eisenhower scored 14%. And Truman, 10%. And Roosevelt, 9%. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I thought that was really, really interesting. Now, here's the funny part. They did a comparative poll. They looked at 2011, and then this poll was taken in 2018. And in 2011, President Obama's rating was 20%. 2018 is 44%. In 2011, Clinton's rating was 49%, and in 2018, it was 33%. Reagan, pretty steady. In 2011 was 34%, and in 2018, 32%. So, and then Kennedy in 2011, 15%, and in 2018, he was 12%. So, there you have it. So, for all of you out there who have said that you think President Obama was the worst president, you got a whole bunch of people that disagree with you very strongly.
Well, the guy that you don't like is going to be the guy that you're going to pick as the worst if you simply don't like him. I've seen a lot of that.
Yeah, and you know, I got to tell you, and probably maybe somebody will take me up on this. I've had this discussion with people before, and they tell me he was a terrible president. I said, okay, tell me what he did that made him such a bad president. And that's what you hear, just what you're hearing now. I go, he raised taxes. I said, no, he didn't.
But you know what's going on inside of their heads when you hear nothing?
Yeah, because they have developed that tribal thinking that he was a horrible president because he was a Democrat. But when you go to say why was he horrible,
They can't answer you because it was because he was black and was elected president. That's why.
I didn't want to say that.
I know, but you see, somebody has to say it because somebody needs to be embarrassed out there.
Okay, but I didn't say it.
Right, that's right.
Said
For the record, yes.
Yeah, okay. So, but when I ask people that, they can hardly ever give me an answer. And if they really sit down, and I've asked one person I know, I said, go somewhere, sit quietly in a corner, and then tell me all the reasons why you think he was a bad president. Just tell me why you think so. I'm more than willing to listen to what you have to say about that. Just tell me what you think about why he's a bad president. You're entitled to your opinion. I'm not going to chop your head off for giving me your opinion about why he's a bad president, but I will challenge you if I think you're giving erroneous information for why he's a bad president. And we got Winnie on line one. Yes, Winnie.
How you doing, Rudy Howard, Cliff?
Okay.
Good. I think I voted for him the first time. President Obama, I voted for him the first time. Gave a whole bunch of people. Let's vote for him because he sounds good. And then the second time, I didn't vote for him again because, like, Congress, he tried to help the people. And Congress, Republic Congress went against him so bad. But anyway, I think he was the best president. Okay, he helped all people, all race of people, not just one state, a group of people. He helped all races of people. And he was very good. He was doing the best. So they did him like that, and he just kept his cool. He cool, calm, and collect.
That's very true. But please,
he didn't let that get a bit trouble.
Okay, but explain something to me, because I'm struggling to try to figure this out. You voted for him the first time, but you didn't vote for him the second time because the Congress wouldn't do anything to move the agenda. So It was his fault that the Congress couldn't move the agenda?
No, I think it was Congress' fault.
Okay, so why didn't you vote for him the second time? I'm not criticizing you. I'm just trying to understand why you didn't vote for him the second time.
Like Congress, he trying to help the people. Like Congress go against him so bad. I didn't make no sense to me.
Okay.
You remember the phrase?
He won again though. That's good.
You remember the phrase "lame duck"? Do you know what lame duck means? That's when the Congress won't let the president pass anything to make him into a lame duck president. Right?
What about I want to ask you too, Rudy? Why Congress, Republican Congress ain't doing Donald Trump like that? They ain't giving him such a hard time like they did Obama.
Because we're into a tribal mode, and if your party is sitting in the White House, there's a tendency to go along with whatever they say. Although Democrats don't do that, but as much. They do it some, but not like the Republicans, because Republicans will all march to the same beat. Now, but in some ways, I think the Republicans are cowards because there are things that are obviously wrong that need to be addressed, and they won't address them because he's a Republican and they're a Republican, and therefore they can't go against him, which is garbage.
That's the answer.
Yeah, okay.
That's the answer right there. Okay, then. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Winnie. Yeah, that's
Wasn't that part of Reaganomics?
Kind of, yes. And let me tell you this, though. There have been a couple of Republicans, namely, I think Lindsey Graham was one of them, who are very ticked off about him selling this nuclear stuff to Saudi. And they're going to oppose him. I think some of them are going to oppose him on that deal. It's on the table. He's approved it, but I think there's going to be some backlash from some of the, I heard a couple of Republicans. Let's see what happens. There is no reason on earth, I'm going to repeat this again. There is no reason on earth we should be selling that nuclear stuff to Saudi Arabia after they killed Khashoggi, who was an American citizen and a reporter with the Washington Post.
And remember, there were more Saudis on those planes on 911 than there were Iraqis.
Well, you're right. Most people, do you know how many times I've had an argument with people about that?
Oh, yeah. Anytime you speak truth about anything, it's going to be opposed because truth is not a tolerated thing.
Well, and you know, I don't know how true this is because I haven't sought to confirm it. Right after that, President Bush arranged to get all the Saudis out of the country post-haste. There was a special flight that was arranged to get them right out of the country. Now, I can't swear to that because, if I say it, then that means I've done the research. And I say that in the back of my mind, but I can't say that I can confirm that.
But see, he's being honest with you, friends. If he can't confirm it, that means that he's not willing to confirm it because he hasn't read the evidence yet.
That's right.
But once he finds that research, because he does his homework, and he says something, he means it.
Yes, that's very true. That's very true.
I'm just kind of warning some of them because I know how they get.
Now, here's the other thing that we're talking about tonight. This discovery of this information on this former Republican operative's computer, which was discovered by his daughter, is just absolutely unbelievable. And the ACLU has presented this evidence to the Supreme Court, because this is in the Supreme Court about adding that question to the census. There's some that believe this may not even be legal. And now here's one for you that'll really get you goat if you're a conservative. Napolitano, you know who he is. He's the legal mind on Fox News. He thinks it's wrong. They should not allow it to be done, to add that citizenship question. He thinks it's potentially a violation of the Constitution, but by the same token, he has said he feels that the Supreme Court, because of the makeup of the Supreme Court, will probably uphold it. But isn't that interesting? The legal mind from Fox News feels it's wrong. Now,
you mean they have a conscience over there?
There's a couple of them over there that I have a respect for. I really do.
Well, yeah.
I think Shepard Smith is a pretty solid guy, and I think Chris Wallace is a pretty solid guy. I don't always agree with Chris, but Shepard pretty much stays down the center. He calls it like he sees it. He will not get into that Sean Hannity makeup crap just to be on the Republican side. He doesn't. I'm surprised to be honest with you, that Shepard Smith is still there. I would have thought maybe they might have fired him because he's come down pretty hard on some stuff that was being said that wasn't true. Now, I have to tell you why this troubles me. And this goes back to something if you've been listening to me for a while, I've been telling you this over and over and over for years. There are black folks that you could win to the Republican Party. No doubt about it. There's absolutely no doubt about it. But you got to stop the dumb stuff. You got to stop the dumb stuff. Now, if I'm leaning conservative and I see what just came out, that there was a purposeful intent to reduce the minority vote in favor of the white vote, how am I going to be a Republican? How can I do that with a conscience? I can't do that with any conscience. If I wanted to be with you, I can't be with you now because you've already told me that I don't count. You do stuff like that and you shoot your own self in the foot. And there's no reason, because you could win. I read J.C. Watt's book, What Color is a Conservative? Very good book. And what he does in there, and if you want to learn something about my culture and what conservatism is, what he basically does is he goes through that book and he talks about how he was raised and how many of the things that he was raised on are very similar to that of the conservative mindset. But for the most part, conservatives just don't care about people. Maybe they don't mean for it to come out like that, but that's the way it comes out. I could never, under any circumstances, be a conservative just because of that one reason, because I care too much for my fellow man and for the humanity of man than to just leave them on the sidelines. You heard me talk about my nephew. My nephew, age 50, is dead because he could not afford the diabetes medicine that would have kept him alive. That's ridiculous. Why should he be dead and he left his 3 children behind? Why? Because he couldn't afford diabetes medicine. And I had gotten him into a plan a couple of years ago. He couldn't afford it. So that to me is insane. So if you want to win the war for votes, modify your position. Do you know that's what Clinton did? When Clinton swept in the office, Clinton moved everybody from the left back to the middle, and he modified his thinking, some of which I disagree with strongly, but he modified his opinion so that he could sweep up more support for votes.
And it worked.
And it worked, exactly. And this is what I keep telling conservatives. All they got to do is modify. Don't do dumb stuff. What they did here is dumb stuff. Now it's come out, and only the hardcore black conservatives are going to stay with you now. If there's a guy out there on the fence saying, well, I like a lot of things that they have to say, but I can't, they're gone now. They're going to say, no, I ain't voting for you. Because you just demonstrated you don't care anything about me or my fellow man. But I know I'm beating my head up against a brick wall because I've been telling you that for years and you're not listening to me. You still keep doing the same dumb stuff to alienate people and not get votes, and then get mad if it doesn't go your way. That's amazing. But anyway. Okay. Now, here's the other one we talked about it briefly. This Parkland police officer.
Scott Peterson.
Should he got 11 counts against him. What do you think? Should he be indicted?
That's one for the conscience of America there.
Yeah. I really want to hear what you have to say about that, because I got to tell you something. I don't have, and you know me, I'm pretty opinionated, but I don't have a rock hard, firm opinion about that, because there's a couple different sides of that issue. But I guess maybe if I was a parent, I'd probably feel a little different. But according to an article by John Vibes, the police officer hid for nearly an hour at DeMondre Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland. The former Broward County Sheriff's Deputy Scott Peterson was arrested this week and charged with 7 counts of child neglect, 3 counts of culpable negligence, and 1 count of perjury. I guess he was less than honest about what he had actually done, and there was some video that actually told on him about what he actually did. And the commissioner, Rick Swearingen, told reporters that Patterson did nothing, absolutely nothing, to help save the children whose lives were in danger that day, despite having been tasked with their protection. He goes on to say, there can be no excuse for his complete inaction and no question that his inaction costs lives, Swearinger says in a statement. Now, I guess that is partially speculative that his inaction caused lives. But if I'm a parent, I guess I might be pushed in another direction if I was a parent of one of those children that died, because there was 17 kids that were dead, and I want to believe if I was in that situation and part of my charge was to protect the kids, I believe I would have acted. Carlos, yes, sir.
Rudy, you are a genius. Let me explain to you something. Remember a few weeks ago, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, I called about that Malcolm X speech that he gave. Well, I came up with a huge, I think it's going to be big slogan. Now listen to me, and then I'm going to hang up, and I want to hear your response. I'm going to have a bumper sticker with Malcolm X's silhouette on it, and it's going to say, "Don't be a chump, vote for Trump." I'm going to hang up, and I want to hear what you say.
Well, Carlos, I would tell you this is for sure. That bumper sticker will never go on my car.
You think Malcolm X would have supported Trump?
No. Not even a little bit would he have supported Trump. And I'm going to tell you why. Let me tell you, there's a movie on Netflix. I started watching it the other night. I haven't got through it yet. They did a movie about the Central Park Five. Okay? It's on Netflix. I was living in New York at the time that happened. Trump took out a full-page ad advocating for the death of those 5 kids.
Wow.
I'm not exaggerating. You can find that. You look, you can find it. He put a full-page ad in the paper advocating that those kids get the death penalty. Now, if you lived there at the time like I did, he had juice like you can't believe. Once he put that full ad in the paper like that, there was no way in hell those kids was going to get a fair trial. None. His word was bond back then. He absolutely had that kind of leverage, and he had that kind of sway with the public in New York City at that time. So it is really sad, and here's what I will say. Okay, you made a mistake. I can understand at the time, because again, I was there, and there was a good deal of passion about what she had gone through and that she was lucky to be alive. I can understand that maybe you got a little carried away. But what I can't understand is why you can't admit you made a mistake. Those kids spent all that time in jail, and they were innocent. They hadn't done it. They were forced into confessions, manipulated and connived, and it was found that they didn't do it. So I would say, this is my opinion. This is not a fact-based thing. This is my opinion that Trump owes them an apology. I made a mistake. Is that hard to do? Is that really that hard to do? I made a mistake. And I helped to get those kids convicted, and they did 12 years in jail for a crime they didn't commit. Is that hard? I don't think that's hard. You think that's hard, Cliff?
Well, it's definitely not easy, that's for sure. We do have some major complications here with this one.
Yeah. So I don't know, but anyway, that's my opinion about that. So as far as I'm concerned, Donald Trump could never get a vote from me under no circumstances, because I just don't think very much of him at all.
What do you suppose Carlos' motivation was, though? Is this like being comical or sarcastic, or?
Well, I think it's a veiled attempt at being funny,
Yeah.
and he likes to say that I'm really closer to his point of view than a Democratic point of view. He likes to point that out to me all the time. But I would probably say, well, all things being considered, I am probably a moderate, but I am definitely not a conservative, and I am definitely more Democratic than I am anything else. I'm a Democrat, and I'm a progressive. But I think that's his point. I think the other thing that he's trying to say, which he said a couple of weeks ago, he thinks, like some people think, that black people just blindly vote for Democrats. But now if you go back and look at history, okay, black people were Republican for a long time. And what began to sway them was FDR. And back at the time when black people were Republicans supported legislation to help to make lives better for African Americans. Then they decided that that's not the way to go. FDR comes along, and then we had a Great Depression, and he does some things to try to really loosen up and help everybody across the board, and slowly the shift began. The shift began from Republican to Democrat. And it took a while because in the beginning, as you well know, historically, the Southern Democrats were very, very racist. So it took the time, which is why I always am saying what I say, that the Democrats modified their thinking about issues, and they eventually won the African Americans to their side. And the African Americans deserted the Republican Party. I mean, listen, Martin Luther King was a Republican. Jackie Robinson was a Republican. People don't know that. Jackie Robinson was a Republican. But as time went on, the more and more black people began to shift to the Democratic Party because of the ideals and the processes that were brought forth that were attractive to them, such as the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act. Those things were very attractive to the African American people, which is why they made that switch. But traditionally, and because I'm taking this away from some who want to call up and tell me that black people used to be Republican, well, I'm telling you, yes, they did. My father was probably a Republican. He would probably roll over in his grave for me saying that, but he was probably a Republican early on in his life because he was a diehard Democrat at the end of his life. But that's just the way it was. We can take a quick break, and you want to call in. I only got a few minutes left, but I'll give you a chance to call in, 340-1590. That's 340-1590.
Serving the entire Treasure Coast, Howard Insurance and Associates in Port St. Lucie offers a wide variety of insurance products, along with the very best customer service. Whether you're shopping for the best homeowners coverage at the most affordable value, contact Rudy Howard's team at Howard Insurance and Associates. If you need coverage for your vehicle, call Howard Insurance and Associates, 343-9878. That's 343-9878. Maybe you're planning to add a boat, motorcycle, or RV. Call Howard Insurance and Associates for your free quote at 343-9878 and get the coverage you need at a cost that will fit your budget. For home or business, auto or recreational vehicle, choose Howard Insurance and Associates, 600 Southwest Darwin Boulevard, Suite 206, Port St. Lucie. And for your free rate quote, call them at 343-9878, 343-9878.
This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
And now we return to the African American scene. Once again, here's your host, Rudy Howard.
You know, Cliff and I was talking off the air about an old book, To Kill a Mockingbird. Well, on Broadway right now, they're doing a play, To Kill a Mockingbird, and Jeff Daniels is playing Atticus Finch, the lead character in Kill a Mockingbird, which was Gregory Peck in the movies. I would love to go see that play. That I bet you that's a hoot, because Jeff Daniels, I think, is a hell of an actor too. So
put in a word for it at the Sunrise Theater. They do live stuff there.
Yeah, they couldn't afford. They couldn't afford them though. That would be first run Broadway play like that.
Wow.
There's probably, and they couldn't get enough people in there to make that work. I'm sure of that. But anyway, so where we are now with the deficit is just absolutely scary, the way the deficit's running away. And I don't know, we have to do something about that for sure. And we have, is that Brian? Brian, yes, sir.
Hey, how you doing, sir?
Okay.
Hey, yeah, I listened to you for a little while now. I just wanted to, I know you don't have a whole lot of time, but I wanted to call and just give credit where credit's due in some of the statements you made. I don't agree with everything you just said a few minutes ago about, the historical aspects of black people and the Democrats and Republicans and all that. But I do know some of the stuff you did say is actually factual, and I agree with that stuff that you said. So I just wanted to give credit where credit's due, mentioning some of the things that you mentioned. So.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yes, no problem. There's more that I'd like to discuss, but I know you're running short on time, and I'm running short on time, so I'll try to give a call back maybe next week, and
please.
We can talk some more. But
yeah, please, by all means, do so.
Right. Yeah.
All right, thanks a lot, sir. Have a good night.
You too.
Well, the good thing about that is he just didn't call to just yell at you because there was something he didn't disagree with you on. He found some common ground there.
Oh yeah, Yeah.
And see, that's what everybody needs to do. They need to find, instead of focusing on the disagreeable components, why don't you find something that's in common and start from there? Because you can get a whole lot more flies with sugar than you can with honey than you can with vinegar.
Yeah. Well, the first part to that making that happen is we have to be able to talk to each other. Even when we disagree, we have to be able to talk to each other. I have to be able to hear your point, and you have to hear mine. Now, I can just tell you, if you're going to talk to me, I promise you, I expect from you the same thing you can expect from me. Don't give me a bunch of fluff and BS, because that'll send us down a bad road, because I won't accept that from you, and I'll challenge you on that, and then I'll put us in a bad spot. If you come at me with stuff that's real, that's factual, we can talk about that, and we can disagree about that as men or gentlemanly or as men and women. It doesn't matter. We can do that. Just don't try to hit me with fluff. Don't try to hit me with any that Alex Jones crap. That sends me down we'll go down a bad road there, because I won't accept that. But if you want to call me up and say, hey, listen, I think so and so and so, okay, we can talk about that, and don't confuse your opinion with facts. Give me facts. You heard me say several times tonight when we were talking that I'm not sure about that, so I'm not going to state definitively that position. And if you've listened to me for a while, I always do that. If I'm not sure, I don't say something I'm not sure about.
However, on the other hand, I've heard a lot of people who didn't have the facts that had an awful lot to say about it.
Exactly.
And then if you don't agree with them, then they're going to start quoting you scripture to try to make you feel like that you're insignificant or something. But,
right. We have
facts.
that.
But the facts will always, settle everything.
Yes, absolutely. But I got to tell you, it's good to be back here. I was glad to have a week off and go play golf and have some fun with the guys. That was a hoot. But I'm back, and if you got things that you're interested in me talking about, go to my Facebook page and you can post to me. Tell me you would like me to talk about this or that. And if I don't have something on my agenda, I promise you I will try to fit it into my agenda for the upcoming show. Okay. So I would tell you, thank you for tuning into the African American scene. God bless and be safe. And I will see you right here next Wednesday for the African American scene.
And your assignment this week is to find some common ground. Okay? And do your homework like Rudy does. The African American Scene with Rudy Howard, brought to you by Howard Insurance of Port St. Lucie. Every Wednesday evening in the 6 o'clock hour, right here on WPSL. And archives of this show are in video form on WPSLTV.com. That's on YouTube. Look for Rudy Howard's African American Scene on YouTube under WPSL TV. And we'll see you again next week, right here on the African American Scene. This is WPSL Port St. Lucie.